Welcome to your Daily 5 for Thursday, June 15th, 2023. I saw a news article over on Ars Technica that said that Microsoft is beginning to sell parts so that people can actually repair and, to some degree, upgrade their Surface laptop devices. And I have to say, this is actually, there has been a kind of slowly optimistic movement going on here. And it's not going fast enough, obviously, but this is in the last, I want to say the last year or two, we've seen Apple come out with its limited repair program for phones, which I think lets you replace screens or batteries. And don't get me wrong, from what I've read, what I've seen people talk about, it is not an easy process by any means, but it's certainly more than Apple has traditionally ever done. There's also what is that laptop? Is it called? I've talked the Framework laptop, which is a completely modular laptop that, from all accounts, is getting better every revision they come out with, to the point where I'm actually kind of looking at getting one myself at some point. And now, of course, we've got Microsoft letting you replace the batteries, keyboards, screens. There are some SSD upgrades, and I know I'm forgetting something else. And while none of these parts are necessarily cheap, as the article on Ars points out, they are still cheaper than buying a new device. And there's also, of course, the environmental benefit of extending the life of devices that are functional, even if a part on them breaks. And this is, again, it's slow. I wish we were further along, but this is, I think, really encouraging that we are seeing these efforts now, because obviously with something like the Framework, that's a niche company that most people who don't read tech news or follow tech information at all, for example, my mother doesn't know what Framework is. She has no idea. Most people are probably not going to repair their own iPhone, but for the people who want to take that on, at least they have an avenue to replace their screen and or batteries. But when it comes to something like Microsoft, because my mother has I think it's a Dell laptop. But honestly, this would make me want to have her next purchase, if she decides to get a new computer, probably be a Surface device. Because inevitably parts on things break, and rather than having to buy an entirely new computer, I mean, it won't replace obviously things like the motherboard or the processor, so you're still going to have, old devices are going to run slower than they did, but a lot of that can be solved by either going to something like Linux or just periodic refreshing of the OS. You can extend, even though, yes, a Windows device, a Windows laptop is not going to last as long as, say, an Apple one does. This does give it a little bit more length and more life, and does offset things that are just accidents. You accidentally crack the keyboard somehow, or you break the screen, you'd have to get an entirely new laptop. And then, of course, the old parts, you don't know if they're actually going to get recycled properly or end up in a landfill or something like that. So I actually think, again, it's not as far as I think most people would like it to be. Ideally, you should be able to replace virtually every part in a laptop. And I know people will say, well, if you don't have a laptop sealed, you have more dust and water ingress. Okay, those are things you accept when you buy machines that are more repairable. If you really don't want to ever risk, water damage or dust getting in there, although even in those cases, let's not forget the butterfly keyboard when it came to dust. It can still happen no matter how well refined these machines are. I think it's actually a very positive step. I hope that now Microsoft, again, we're seeing bigger names get into this than we've seen before. And hopefully there is a continuation of this where you can keep replacing things. Maybe we're on our way back to the way laptops and machines used to be, where you actually could upgrade nearly every component inside there. Imagine, we started out there, we got away from it, and now maybe we're slowly winding our way back. I hope so. I really love the idea of the Framework. I think that's great. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that modular a machine. Even if a computer was, partially repairable, as Microsoft is kind of doing here, I think that's great. There is a middle ground where you don't have to have every single component necessarily be replaceable, but you make it where literally if the battery on your laptop goes, guess what? New laptop. Because we know there are defects. We know sometimes things fail even before their operational life. And yes, the warranty might cover it, but it also might not. And if you're 2 months past the warranty, why can't you replace that yourself? So again, I'm allowing myself to be a bit optimistic here. There's no indication that this will go any further, and it may just go away the same way it came back. We may see these things get rolled back in the future. But I like to try to be optimistic when it makes sense, and this seems like a good move to me. So I'm really happy Microsoft is doing this. I hope it will continue the program, and I hope others will do the same type of thing. I mean, really, there is only other manufacturers. It's kind of slim pickings, but I like the fact that the Surface is repairable. It's a start. It's or not even a start, but it's another step along a journey that has been going slowly but steadily. So I think this is a good sign. I hope we see more of it to come later.